Welcome to the Lincoln County Highway 106 Corridor Study Public Meeting Number 2. The purpose of today's meeting is to provide a study update, to present preliminary recommendations, and to gather feedback related to these preliminary recommendations to help guide refinement and finalize recommendations before completing the study. I do want to stress that this presentation is meant to provide an overview of preliminary recommendations and supporting information. Please visit the open house and study website for more details related to the various display boards and roll plots of intersection roadway segment layouts. A study advisory team was organized to provide incremental feedback and guide the study through completion. The study advisory team is made up of members from the Southeastern Council of Governments, Lincoln County, City of Harrisburg, City of Sioux Falls, and the South Dakota Department of Transportation. The study area encompasses approximately 9 miles of Lincoln County Highway 106, or 271st Street, between and including the intersections of Tallgrass Avenue to the west and 480th Avenue to the east. There are 5 overarching objectives for the Highway 106 corridor study, and those include determining the number of lanes for the corridor, developing alternatives for all arterial section line intersections, developing a corridor access management plan and a corridor land use plan, and ultimately developing a long-range plan to help guide future planning and implementation projects while working towards a long-range vision of the corridor. The study began in summer 2022 with data collection and baseline conditions analysis. Our first public meeting was held in October 2022, where we looked for your feedback on transportation-related issues and needs that we needed to address here as part of the corridor study. From there, we took that information and developed and refined alternatives, and most recently developed preliminary recommendations. We're bringing that information here to the second public meeting open house, and again, we're looking for your feedback related to the preliminary recommendations and the layouts. From there, we'll take that information, do any further refinement, evaluation, and ultimately looking to conclude the corridor study in June 2023. Since the last open house, the study team has primarily focused on developing, refining, and evaluating conceptual layouts. This has also included developing corridor plans related to land use and access management, initiating utility coordination, creating a sensitivity analysis for traffic operations reflecting volumes that were higher than year 2050 forecasts presented at the first open house, and most recently developing preliminary recommendations for feedback. There was considerable discussion in the first open house regarding future traffic patterns along Highway 106 following completion of Veterans Parkway between I-29 and the existing Veterans Parkway on the east side of Sioux Falls. Upon full completion of Veterans Parkway, we anticipate that there will be an immediate shift in traffic from Highway 106 to Veterans Parkway, and that will lead to a decrease in Highway 106 traffic volumes until additional development occurs along the Highway 106 corridor. So based on feedback from the first open house and discussions with the study advisory team, we created a sensitivity analysis to increase Highway 106 traffic volumes beyond what we showed in that first open house for year 2050 planning horizon forecasts. And this accounts for that what if. What if future development occurs quicker than anticipated, or that development occurs at a higher level of density and thus generates more trips, or development access is more focused to the Highway 106 corridor and less focused on the north-south arterial roadways. So this sensitivity scenario reflects Highway 106 volumes that are approximately 75% higher than what was presented in that first open house meeting for year 2050 planning horizon volumes. And this accounts for additional east-west through traffic on the 106 corridor and more traffic turning to and from the north-south arterial roadways. The one thing I want to stress here is that all preliminary recommendations account for the analysis of these volumes, and the layouts shown here in this public meeting accommodate the volumes here within this scenario. The remainder of the presentation focuses on preliminary recommendations, and we've broken these slides into 3 main components. The first includes guidance type recommendations such as corridor land use, access management, and corridor typical sections. Next, we move into an overview of the recommendation timeline framework, and that sets the stage for the final component, which is regarding conceptual or layout type recommendations, looking at arterial intersections and roadway segments between the arterial intersections. The Highway 106 Corridor Land Use Plan is based on City of Harrisburg and City of Sioux Falls comprehensive planning efforts to date. Node-based employment centers are located at each of the arterial intersections along the study corridor. From there, the primary land use is anticipated to be residential, with higher density residential along the arterial corridors and transitioning to lower density residential as you move away from the arterial corridors. The land use plan also identifies existing natural detention areas, proposed City of Sioux Falls detention areas, and culvert crossings requiring drainage considerations and further analysis. The Corridor Access Management Plan establishes a framework for managing existing and future access along the Highway 106 corridor. These recommendations are based on City of Sioux Falls Type 3 arterial guidance, which provides for full movement access points at quarter-mile spacing, signal spacing at every quarter mile, and median openings at 660 feet. Unsignalized access points may be added through analysis, and the separation between those access points varies. Recommendations for managing existing access points is recommended to occur through future development, redevelopment to a higher land use and transportation projects, and could accommodate a variety of different methods typical to the Sioux Falls MPO area. Corridor typical sections provide the framework to implement the long-range vision of Highway 106 corridor transportation elements. 3 typical sections are recommended for consideration throughout the corridor and include a 3-lane, 5-lane, and 4-lane divided typical section. Each provides an option for urban-rural elements that will be shown in the following slides. First is the 3-lane typical section, and that reflects a single through lane in each direction plus a continuous center left turn lane. Shared use path is located on both sides of the Highway 106 corridor out near the edge of the right-of-way to provide maximum separation between the shared use path and the vehicular travel lanes. The top view reflects the urban typical section with curb and gutter. The bottom view reflects the rural typical section with shoulders and roadside ditches. The 5-lane typical section builds upon the 3-lane section to incorporate 2 through lanes in each direction instead of 1, as well as a continuous center left turn lane. Again, the shared use path is located on both sides of the Highway 106 corridor out near the edge of the right-of-way to maximize separation between the shared use path and vehicular travel lanes. The top view reflects the urban typical section with curb and gutter. The bottom view reflects the rural typical section with shoulders and roadside ditches. And finally, the 4-lane divided typical section builds upon the 5-lane section to maintain 2 through lanes in each direction, but instead of a continuous center left turn lane, this typical section incorporates a raised median with left turn lanes at designated intersections. The 4-lane divided typical section incorporates shared use path on both sides of Highway 106, located out near the edge of the right-of-way to provide maximum separation between the shared use path and the vehicle travel lanes. Top view reflects the urban typical section with curb and gutter. Bottom view reflects the rural typical section with shoulders and roadside ditches. Recommendation timelines were developed to support flexibility in planning for and implementing future projects based on corridor needs. With the anticipated shift in traffic volumes to Veterans Parkway upon opening of Veterans Parkway between I-29 and 57th Street, much of the long-range corridor traffic on Highway 106 will be generated by future development in the area. Therefore, recommended timelines coincide with Sioux Falls and Harrisburg growth area timelines and allows for flexibility to adjust with any growth area updates. The short-term recommendations reflect implementation in the 0 to 10-year time frame and coincides with the initial growth area between Louise Avenue and Southeastern Avenue. Midterm is the 10 to 15-year range, reflects a continued development between Louise Avenue and Southeastern Avenue, as well as a prompt for potential needs extending east to 480th Avenue. The long-term time frame reflects 15 plus years and circles back to the initial growth area between Louise Avenue and Southeastern Avenue to determine whether additional capacity enhancements are needed, such as intersection modifications or expansion to multiple lanes in each direction along Highway 106. The next few slides present an overview of the preliminary recommendations using the base map shown here, which includes intersections from Louise Avenue eastward to 480th Avenue. Preliminary short-term recommendations focus on constructing a three-lane section between Louise Avenue and Southeastern Avenue to accommodate future traffic growth due to anticipated development in this area. There are two intersection options at Louise Avenue, Western Avenue, and Cliff Avenue, and Southeastern Avenue for your consideration and include a roundabout or stop control that transitions to traffic signals when warranted by traffic volumes. To the east of Southeastern Avenue, no modifications are recommended outside of monitoring major intersections for improvement needs and the planned South Dakota Department of Transportation project to reconstruct South Dakota Highway 11, which includes the Highway 106 intersection. Preliminary midterm recommendations shift the focus east to Southeastern Avenue to construct a three-lane section from Southeastern Avenue to South Dakota Highway 11, and then considering a three-lane section to the east over to 480th Avenue, as well as changes to intersection control, whether it's signalizing South Dakota Highway 11 based on traffic signal warrants, or considering roundabouts at 479th Avenue and 480th Avenue. Preliminary long-term recommendations reflect the long-range vision for the Highway 106 corridor. Through the traffic operations analysis, which included the sensitivity analysis, it was found that the greatest potential need for a multi-lane typical section is located between Western Avenue and Southeastern Avenue. The multi-lane section, which provides 2 lanes in each direction, provides a higher levels of capacity through the key intersections of Minnesota Avenue and Cliff Avenue, and extends that consistent lane configuration through the intersections of Western Avenue and Southeastern Avenue. In this instance, the 4-lane divided and the 5-lane typical sections are applicable. Consideration may also be given to constructing a multi-lane section westward to Louise Avenue or eastward to South Dakota 11 based on long-range capacity and route continuity needs. Further to the east, the recommendation maintains or constructs the 3-lane section, if not already constructed, eastward to 480th Avenue. Intersection options for a roundabout or signalized intersection are shown at Louise, Western, and Southeastern Avenue intersections. Preliminary recommendation layouts reflect conceptual layouts that bring everything together to help visualize the preliminary recommendations. And this includes recommendations regarding major intersection options, regarding different intersection types, traffic control and lane configuration, recommended typical section elements such as number of lanes and shared use path along the corridor. Also includes recommended access management in terms of identifying where the potential quarter-mile full access intersections may be located. These layouts are shown visually through a series of 2 roll plots. The first roll plot includes short-term and mid-term recommendations, and the second roll plot includes long-term recommendations. An example of what you'll see on the roll plots is shown here, which includes a clip of short-term preliminary recommendations between Louise Avenue and Western Avenue intersections. The roll plot includes major intersection options with intersection type, lane configuration, and traffic control. It also shows roadway segment components reflective of the recommended typical section. It includes the number of lanes as well as shared use paths on both sides of the highway. You'll also see the location of recommended mid-segment full access intersections. There are also a couple display boards that show additional roadway segment concepts between Cliff Avenue and Southeastern Avenue. And these concepts include railroad grade separation, where Highway 106 would go over the existing railroad track, and also access management concepts to the east of the railroad tracks with regard to access modifications, frontage and rearage roads. A common question is, how will the study recommendations fit with potential near-term corridor improvements? And it's important to remember that study recommendations reflect the long-range vision of the Highway 106 corridor and facilitate incremental improvements, all working towards the long-range vision. An example is, what if a roundabout is desired at Western Avenue or Cliff Avenue before Veterans Parkway is fully open and we see that shift in traffic volumes from 106 up to Veterans Parkway? The response would be that the roundabout design should accommodate the future corridor cross-section, which would be a three-lane section, and incorporate the multimodal elements such as the shared use path on both sides of the highway. And ultimately, this provides Lincoln County, City Harrisburg, and City Sioux Falls the flexibility to program projects when needed and as funding is available. And finally, we'd like to touch on a potential connection between Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue. At the first public meeting, we received considerable feedback on the various options presented, which we greatly appreciate. With consideration to this feedback and further analysis and discussion over the last several months, it was determined that no recommendation for a specific alignment or future project will be made as part of this study. However, in the study documentation, we are proposing to highlight the importance of a future connection being implemented as part of future development through a collaborative planning process between developers and government agencies. It is important to note that some sort of east-west connection will be needed at some point in the future to provide access to future development throughout the area, with the connection being established as part of that development. 2, there are several locations throughout the metro area where in hindsight it would have been nice if an arterial or even a collector connection was provided. Once that opportunity passes to construct this connection, it can be difficult or very costly to provide that connection once the area develops. Establishing a through route as part of future development provides beneficial connectivity and continuity between Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue, reduces the need for short distance trips on Veterans Parkway, and would help minimize neighborhood cut-through if there wasn't a designated connection. And before concluding the presentation, just a reminder that we are looking for your feedback and thoughts on the following items, which include corridor land use and access planning, major arterial intersection configurations, segment full access intersections, number of lanes and multimodal elements, and timelines of improvements regarding the short, mid, and long-term recommendations. There are multiple methods to provide comments and feedback, include submitting a comment form at the in-person open house. You can also reach out to any of the study contacts on the website, and you can submit comments directly through the study website. And with that, I'd just like to thank you for your interest and participation in the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor study. We do request that comments received by June 2nd, and that allows us to move into the final steps of the study, which includes additional refinement and evaluation of alternatives, and ultimately finalizing recommendations through the final corridor study report. Thank you.